Resident Evil Extinction, a novelization by Keith R.A. De Candido. Chapter 17. Before. The bullet ripped through Angela Ashford's head, splattering her brains all over the SUV's rear window. In her mind, Alice screamed, "No!" But her body refused to cooperate. At first. Then she whirled around and shot the two security guards closest to her. She shot at Isaacs too, but as soon as she had turned around, he had run, and the remaining two security guards were covering him. Alice shot them both in the head. Then she ran after Isaacs. Just as she turned a corner, she saw him disappear into an elevator. Undaunted, Alice ran up to the closed doors, put her fingers at the seam where the doors joined, took a deep breath, and started to pry them apart. It was no effort at all. With the grinding sound of stressed metal, the doors separated. Looking up, she saw that the elevator was rising. She smiled. She crouched and leapt into the air, her fingers clasping on one of the bars on the elevator's undercarriage. Pausing for a second to solidify her grip, she started to swing back and forth, just as the elevator came to a halt. She built up enough momentum to swing upward, the soles of her boots slamming into the bottom of the elevator. It took a few more of those to make a hole wide enough for her to crawl through. Once she clambered up into the elevator, she saw that it was empty. Whirling around, she saw Isaac standing with two more security thugs by his side, with MP5s aimed at Alice. Before she could raise her own weapon, Isaac said, "Stop!" And she did. "Come with me." He turned around and walked down the corridor. Obediently, Alice followed. She tried to fight it, but she couldn't stop walking down the corridor after Isaac's. Her legs would not obey instructions. Her arms, however, did. As she tried to raise them, and surprised herself by succeeding, immediately she shot one of the guards, then the other. But when she tried to aim the weapon's muzzle at Isaac's, she couldn't. At the sound of the shot, Isaacs turned around. "Fascinating," he said, showing no concern for his fallen employees. "Lower your weapon. Take no action without my express instruction." Alice lowered her weapon. She couldn't raise it again. Whatever the jerk had done to her had a more limited control than Isaacs had thought. Obviously, but it also seemed to be tied directly into instructions from him. Then an alarm went off. "Security breach," said a voice over the speakers. "All security personnel to front entrance." Isaacs pulled a phone out of his lab coat. "What's going on?" "Intruders, sir," said the same voice, now sounding tinny over the phone's small speaker. "They followed Project Alice through the cordon. Sir, one of them is Oliveira." "Damn it," Isaacs muttered. He looked at Alice, then said into the phone, "Stop them. Whatever it takes." Alice turned and ran. She hadn't intended to, and she couldn't stop. She heard Isaacs make a noise as if starting to speak, but then nothing else came from him. He hadn't intended that instruction to be for her, but her now literal-minded nervous system had responded anyhow. Apparently, he saw the benefits to that, so he let her go. Alice tried to make herself stop, and failed. Her only exposure to the Detroit facility had been a cursory examination of the floor plan one afternoon when she was bored while working at the mansion, the place where they'd assigned her and Spence for several months to head up security for the Hive. Despite that, she unerringly ran toward the front entrance. She arrived to see a limping Molina, an angry Carlos, and a lot of bodies on the floor, one of which was King's. Of Briscoe and LJ there was no sign. "Alice!" Carlos cried upon sighting her. "What the hell's going on?" "Carlos, you've got to get out of here." Her arms rose, pointing her weapon right at Carlos's face. She lowered it a second later. Isaac's programming was wearing off, at least for now, absent any direct instructions from the bastard. "Get out of here, Carlos," she said. Looking at Molina, she added, "Get him some medical help, but leave here now." "Not without you." "Yes, without me. Just trust me, okay? If you don't leave now, more than King and Angie will be dead." Carlos's eyes widened. Angie's dead? Yes, they killed her. It wasn't entirely a lie. And they'll kill you too. Get out of here. Footfalls could be heard from down the hall. Go, now! Still, Carlos stared at her. Melina said, To hell with it, Oliveira. She wants us gone, let's be gone. We already lost Burton and King. We can't. We can't lose her too. If we do... Alice interrupted. You've already lost me, Carlos. Just go. 4 security guards came running around the corner, and Alice proceeded to shoot them down in succession, blowing the head off the 4th one before the first one even hit the ground. Go! Melina was already headed out, but Carlos kept staring at her with those intense brown eyes of his. The two of them had been through hell together, saved each other's life a dozen times over. Alice hadn't had many friends in her life, and the few she'd had, she'd lost. Most recently, she'd killed one with her own hand. Never mind that it was at Isaac's direction. It was still her finger that pulled the trigger that ended Angela Ashford's life. Poor little Angie, who had in essence saved all of them, since they only knew about the helicopter that took them out of Raccoon before the bomb dropped because Angie's father had told them about it in exchange for rescuing his daughter. She couldn't let that happen again. Like it or not, the strike team would have to do without her. As it was, she was directly responsible for the deaths of Jason, Angie, and King. Who knew how many more innocents would die because of Isaac's and his ridiculous obsession with her? No, it had to end. Carlos must have seen something in Alice's blue eyes, because he finally looked away. Fine, let's move. He joined Melina in heading toward the exit. Alice ran in the other direction, refusing to let herself look back. She just needed to make it to a room with a computer terminal and stay away from Isaac's. Without his direct instructions, she could fight this, but she had to fix things so he could never give her direct instruction again, which meant not finding her again, another reason to stay away from other people. Years ago, Alice had been recruited by Umbrella to join Security Division. She had been promised more money and more chances for advancement than she'd get in the U.S. Treasury Department. Given her inability to be assigned to the Secret Service, the whole reason she joined the Treasury in the first place, she jumped at the opportunity. It may well have been the stupidest decision she'd ever made. She soon learned that her new employers were a nest of vipers, and since her attempt to bring them down, with Lisa Broward's help, had failed, the human race had been hit with an extinction-level event thanks to the very deadly sins of Umbrella employees. Spence's greed, causing him to steal the T-virus and set it loose in the hive to cover his tracks. Kane's stupidity, reopening the hive, thus causing Raccoon City to be infected. And Isaac's scientific curiosity, which obviously came at the expense of his humanity, experimenting on her and Matt, turning them into freaks. And now Isaacs had taken from her the only method she had for helping people, by forcing her to go off the grid and stay away from the only people in the world she could allow herself to trust. Bastard. She found a computer terminal in an empty room and started working. Part 2. Fight for Survival. Chapter 18. Alice had intended to go to sleep as soon as she made camp somewhere in Nevada, but while she ate her can of Spam, she started reading the journal she'd found next to the hanged body in the Enco station. The last few pages of the journal were all about a place called Arcadia, Alaska. Heard the transmission again, the journal's author had written. They're broadcasting from a town in Alaska. No infection, no undead. They're isolated up there. Safe. Intermixed with the increasingly sloppy handwriting were clips from magazines about Arcadia. One was a feature about polar bears, but it had photos of Arcadia in it. The entire journal was a monument to Arcadia. Intellectually, Alice knew there had to be places like that. True, the infection had spread all the way across the globe, but nothing gained 100% penetration. Isolated towns like Arcadia stood the best chance of staying free of the T-virus. By the time she was done with the entire journal, her fire had gone almost completely out. Letting it die on its own, she lay down in the hopes of rest and sleep. Not that she was counting on that. The last time she had a good night's sleep, Spence was sharing a bed with her. Still, she lay on her side, closed her eyes, and hoped for the best. Besides, while the dreams had been unpleasant, they hadn't been awful for a while. The night was quiet, far quieter than the desert used to be. Even the animals had been affected by the T-virus. Alice drifted off to sleep. The bullet flew. Do you know what this is? It's a pen. See? You try. Pen. Pen. Look at me. Can you remember anything? Do you remember your name? My name. I want her under 24-hour observation. I want a complete set of blood work and chemical and electrolyte analysis by the end of the day. My name, sir. Advanced reflex testing is also a priority. My name. I want her electrical impulses monitored. Sir. What is it? My name is Alice, and I remember everything. The bullet flew through the air. Looks like we got the fun job. Fun, right? What, you don't like lounging around the nicest mansion in the state, doing nothing for 3 months? Not really. I didn't take this job to sit on my butt. Too bad. It's a nice one. The bullet flew through the air, as if in slow motion. What's the plan? Stay alive. That's it? That's it. Nice plan. Should I paint a bullseye on my face? The bullet flew through the air as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle. I failed. All of them. I failed them. Listen, there was nothing you could have done. The corporation is to blame here, not you, and we finally have the proof. That means Umbrella can't get away. Get away with this. We can. What is it? Ah! You're infected. You'll be okay. I'm not losing you. The bullet flew through the air as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle in a puff of smoke. Don't you understand how important you are to us? That creature is one thing, but you're something very, very special. Somehow you bonded with the T-virus on a cellular level. You adapted it. You changed it. You became something magnificent. I became a freak. No, far from it. You're not mutation. You're evolution. Think about it. It took 5 million years for us to step out of the trees. You took the next step in less than 5 days. With our help, just think what you can achieve. Now, who can understand that? Who can appreciate that? Us. No one else. Where else are you going to go? And what about him? Evolution has its dead ends. Now finish this. Take your place at my side. The bullet flew through the air as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle in a puff of smoke. Angie's eyes widened. You don't give up, do you? I'm persistent. I don't give up until I get what I want. It's what makes me good at my job. Good thing, 'cause you certainly won't get by on your looks. Hey, what about my nice butt? Why do you think I was looking at your butt instead of your face? Ouch, shot to the heart. Don't worry, Spence. If I ever really shoot you, it'll be between the eyes. The bullet flew through the air as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle in a puff of smoke. Angie's eyes widened, yet she didn't seem all that surprised. Why are you telling me this? Are you just telling me because you're going to kill me? I may look like a Bond girl, Lisa, but I'm not a Bond villain. I didn't bring you here to kill you. I brought you here to talk to you. About what? I thought that was obvious. After all, Mahmoud al-Rashan was your friend, and I can't imagine that the settlement Umbrella gave his wife did much to alleviate her grief. It took a lot of guts to do what you did. You want the virus? I might. I can help you get the virus. I have access to security plans, surveillance codes, the works. But there's going to be a price. Name it. You have to guarantee me that you'll bring this corporation down. The bullet flew through the air as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle in a puff of smoke. Angie's eyes widened, yet she didn't seem all that surprised. She'd always had a maturity far beyond her years. Who the hell are you? My name's Alice. We're not safe in here. That fire will spread. No kidding. I'm Sergeant Peyton Wells of STARS. This is one of my best people, Officer Jill Valentine. I'm impressed that you stayed in town. Protect and serve, that's what we do. Weren't you suspended? Yeah, I saw zombies in the Arklay Mountains forest. Everyone thought I was crazy. At this point, we're all a little crazy. The bullet flew through the air as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle in a puff of smoke. Angie's eyes widened, yet she didn't seem all that surprised. She'd always had a maturity far beyond her years. Then the bullet tore into her flesh. Get out of here, Carlos. Get him some medical help, but leave here now. Not without you. Yes, without me. Just trust me, okay? If you don't leave now, more than King and Angie will be dead. Angie's dead? Yes, they killed her, and they'll kill you too. Get out of here. Go, now. To hell with it, Oliveira. She wants us gone. Let's be gone. We already lost Burton and King. We can't. We can't lose her too. If we do, you've already lost me, Carlos. Just go. The bullet flew through the air as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle in a puff of smoke. Angie's eyes widened, yet she didn't seem all that surprised. She'd always had a maturity far beyond her years. Then the bullet tore into her flesh, rending her adorable face into mulch. What do you think you're doing? He's wounded. The infection's spreading. I'm fine. You should take care of him now. He's my friend. I understand, but it'll be more difficult later. You know that. No, if it comes to that, I'll take care of it myself. As you wish. It's nothing personal, but in an hour, maybe two, you'll be dead. Then minutes later, you'll be one of them. You'll endanger your friends, try to kill them, maybe succeed. Sorry, but that's just the way it is. The bullet flew through the air, as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle in a puff of smoke. Angie's eyes widened, yet she didn't seem all that surprised. She'd always had a maturity far beyond her years. Then the bullet tore into her flesh, rending her adorable face into mulch, drilling through her skull. It's a long shot. What's the alternative? We can sit on our butts and run from the feds. The longer we wait, the easier it'll be for Umbrella to cover this up. We gotta get people picking at the scab before it has a chance to heal. It's done. What's done? I put the video online. All the footage of Raccoon City and your confession. I had to put it in 2 separate bits, since the website I'm using only lets me put up videos 2 minutes at a time. Angie, if they can trace it, they can't. I used an untraceable email address and used one of my father's programs to mask the IP address. No one will know where it came from. The bullet flew through the air, as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle in a puff of smoke. Angie's eyes widened, yet she didn't seem all that surprised. She's always had a maturity far beyond her years. Then the bullet tore into her flesh, rending her adorable face into mulch, drilling through her skull, splattering cranial matter, flesh, and bone, all across the back window of the SUV. I can give you the code, but first you must do something for me. What do you want? One of your group is infected. I require her life for the code. The antivirus is right there on the platform. It's right there. I'm sorry, but it's a risk I cannot take. She's right. It's the only way. You're gonna have to kill me. No. Otherwise, we all die down here. The bullet flew through the air as if in slow motion, firing from the muzzle in a puff of smoke. Angie's eyes widened, yet she didn't seem all that surprised. She'd always had a maturity far beyond her years. Then the bullet tore into her flesh, rending her adorable face into mulch, drilling through her skull, splattering cranial matter, flesh, and bone all across the back window of the SUV. Angie's body fell to the side, dead. No! Alice sprang upward, her 9mm out and ready. All around her, fires burned. The campfire was going full bore, and several cacti were ablaze as well. Rocks and boulders and litter floated in the air, as did the BMW. A second later, she awakened. It all fell to the ground. The fires all went out. Damn it. She walked over to the bike, which was mangled from the impact, or maybe from Alice's burst of telekinesis. The power had scared her, and she hadn't used it much, even when it might have been useful. But this dream, this was the worst. She wasn't sure what had triggered it, the journal, probably, and it's a dream of a better life. But the upshot was a nightmare as bad as she'd ever experienced. And the sad thing was, that nightmare was simple memory. She walked over to her radio and tuned it to a particular frequency that she'd heard many times before but never acted on. This is Claire Redfield's convoy. Present location, the Desert Trail Motel. Latitude 35, longitude 115. Calling any survivors. Hoisting the saddlebags over her shoulder, Alice started walking toward latitude 35, longitude 115. If nothing else, she was looking forward to seeing Carlos again. Sam Isaacs cursed as the computer displayed the words, "Genetic match with original project, Alice incomplete, 75% chance of serum failure." Which meant that Alice 86 was only 75% successful. Hardly the results that would make him or Wesker and his merry band of lunatics happy. He pounded a fist on the keyboard and cursed again. "Dr. Isaacs?" "Yes," he said testily to the White Queen. "What is it?" "My senses have detected a peak in psionic activity, both alpha and beta wave." That got Isaacs to sit up in his chair. None of the clones had shown the same proclivity for psionics that the original Project Alice did. "From number 87? "No, the activity is not from one of the clones. It occurred outside the complex." Instinctively, Isaacs said, "That's not possible," then realized that the words were idiotic in a world that had been overrun by animated corpses, and where he spent all his time working with fully grown clones of a superpowered woman. Old habits, however, died hard. In her usual snotty tone, the White Queen said, "My senses were quite clear. Massive psionic activity was detected 15 minutes ago, centered on a desert location." "Triangulate immediately. I want longitude and latitude." "Of course." Ever since the Detroit debacle, Isaacs had been trying to track down Project Alice. She'd done something to the computers and to her implant. Isaacs was sure that if he could just get her in the same room with him, he could control her again, as he had when he had her shoot Ashford's tiresome child. But accomplishing that was proving problematic. She had been clever, too, not using her psionic abilities overtly and staying out of satellite range. But now, perhaps there was a chance, and once he had Project Alice back in hand, everything else would flow far more smoothly.